The cancelled Chinese Grand Prix has left a huge F1 void in our lives. The Azerbaijan GP is still a week and a half away, and we guess we'll just have to soldier on until that point. Still, the cancellation of the Chinese Grand Prix has created an interesting situation, with F1 looking at removing not one but two of our favourite tracks in the near future. F1 is an ever-evolving sport, with the sport evolving with time, whether it be through technology or regulations. The F1 world is always looking to improve. At the moment, the sport is looking to improve its ever-expanding audience, with the race day weekend looking to change in the near future and the introduction of sprint races to help keep people interested. With all the changes happening and the sport looking to continue to evolve, it looks like the race weekend may be getting a new look as well, with some of F1's most historic and beloved tracks being in jeopardy of getting cut from the calendar altogether. It is not unusual, nor is it unknown for F1 to change its calendar, with the sport having a history of expanding and introducing new tracks. Think of the USA this year, it stages 3 Grand Prix, up from none 10 years ago. This is great for exposure of the sport and for F1 fans in that country, but leaves F1 with a massive headache, as currently the Concord Agreement dictates a maximum of 24 races without unanimous team consent and 25 with a full agreement. Stefano Domenicali, the head of F1, has come out and said that there is potentially enough demand for F1 that 30 races could be staged each year. Sounds pretty crazy, and Stefano is probably correct, but wanting to stage a GP and actually staging it are two different things. As all F1 fans know, this is not a cheap sport, and hosting an F1 race is particularly expensive. It is where most countries stumble, as circuits and/or promoters are asked to commit upwards of 30 million euros and provide sureties for another 100 million euros, and so they generally fade away. It occurred with Kyalami, Hanoi, Nürburgring, Hockenheim, Sepang, and others. F1 has a clear plan at the moment, and that is to diversify and expand outside of Europe, with the expansion into the Middle East and the USA paying testament to the ever-expanding F1 world. There is talk of a 4th USA GP, Seoul seeking an event, and talk of an African race that refuses to die. The potential return of an African GP has long been on the cards, with the continent last hosting a GP in 1993, but the situation remains delicately poised and looks to be going down a dead end in the same manner it did last year. According to sources, the elusive promoter has been replaced by an entity that does have the funding but seems to have lost his ability to write, or maybe they just have lost their pen, as talks seem to have stalled and there is no contract. According to local sources, an end of April deadline has been set, but last year the cutoff was extended thrice from May to August. Good news, however, for Africa is that Domenicali is most certainly looking to make this happen, with the F1 boss having this to say: 100% Africa is still a continent that we are working very hard. As I always said, we need to find the right partners, the right middle-term plan. What I want to avoid is that we go there 1 year and then forget it, he said. We are working, trying to find a solution for the best of the sport, for the best of the country, said Domenicali. We are not going to lie, we love it. The more people that can enjoy F1 in person, the better, and hopefully they don't feel like Jeremy Clarkson felt about his in-person F1 experience. Back to more serious matters though, and if you do some simple maths, F1 has a slight problem. The Chinese Grand Prix will return next year, and the return of an F1 GP in Africa or a potential new race in the USA or Seoul means we could have 25 to 27 potential Grand Prix. But with there being only space for 24 and max 25, if all teams agree, which we know doesn't happen often. Great if you're a fan, but less great if you're a current track on the circuit. According to Stefano Domenicali, the older, more historic tracks are in jeopardy of getting the axe, compared to the newer, more attractive tracks. Today the money is huge, but we need to protect the quality of the events and the sport, said Domenicali. When historical is only connected to looking behind, that is a problem. When historical is a value, if you are focused on developing the sport for the future, it's a great value. That's our duty, to make sure that, for example, Monza, it's an incredible place, but they need to make sure they invest in the future infrastructure, in the services for the fans. Pretty bold statement from the head of F1, but let's be honest, could the boss really get rid of Silverstone and Zandvoort for more glossy tracks? And surely there are other tracks that need to go before Zandvoort and Silverstone. Well, the answer is both yes and no. Let's dig into it a bit. The demand for F1 is obviously outweighing the supply. In order to facilitate the F1 demand, Domenicali has a potential solution, and it goes by the name of race rotation, particularly where events are underwritten by public purses, partially or in full. This sounds great, a sort of win-win situation. Fans get new races to go to, and the race is still on the circuit, albeit not every year. Well, that assumption is wrong, as older F1 fans will remember the disaster that was at Nürburgring and Hockenheim, who had both played to full houses during the same season just 3 years earlier to accept rotation. The former withdrew after hosting 4 events, while the latter stuttered along for 5 races, but only after F1 agreed to indemnify the local council against losses. We now have no F1 in Germany, and the sport has struggled to get a foothold since. Such a deal was proposed to Valencia and Barcelona, but this was swiftly rejected. The sad truth is that the race sharing doesn't kill one venue but both, as promoters do not want to invest in upgrades due to the economic returns not matching. Therefore, it creates the choice for promoters where it is either no deal or no upgrades, creating a vicious circle, as Germany discovered. The other major implication is ticket sales, as the practice is to sell tickets as soon as possible, and normally the next day after the GP, as the interest in the event is huge and the enthusiasm is at an all-time high. Now, you try selling tickets for an event in 2 years. Probably going to be hard to sell, as most people don't know what they'll be doing at that point. It also opens up the opportunity to try a different venue. In the case of Zandvoort, Max Verstappen, who regularly alludes to retirement within 5 years and without whose successes the Dutch event would hardly exist. Ditto Silverstone and Lewis Hamilton. Let's be honest, no one wants to see a current track leave the circuit, but sometimes we do need to look at what tracks should stay and what tracks should go. First up, let's take a look at the one most people would like to see leave the current circuit, and that's Monaco. Many fans call it boring, and without rain there isn't much entertainment value throughout the weekend. But qualifying at Monaco is something to behold if you ever want to see drivers on the limit. It's perfection to the millimeter, never mind an inch. There is, of course, the status of having a race in Monaco with the ability for teams to schmooze the billionaires that live in one of the most expensive places on earth, and money is what keeps F1 going. Just ask Red Bull. We will let you decide if Monaco should stay. The other track, whose future has always been uncertain for several years, is Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Still, sadly, this is nothing to do with the racing experience, but rather finances and aged infrastructure. The reported figure to host an F1 race at $55 million. Neither the track nor the government can afford this. Spa continues to be in jeopardy, but surely money should not be the only reason why a track is on the circuit. For us, Spa should stay, but with new tracks coming on board, this may be harder and harder. Silverstone is also not safe. One would think that with 7 of the 10 Formula 1 teams calling England home, Silverstone would be a guaranteed spot on the calendar, and yet, like Spa, unfathomably, it is not. However, the track never delivers a bad race, and purely on atmosphere alone, Silverstone should stay. Now, there are other tracks that should probably be replaced, but something new is not always something better, with some tracks not providing much action, but the tracks themselves being a challenge. We're not saying that tracks can't be improved, but just thinking, should money be the only driver for F1 tracks? Probably not, but we don't make the rules.